101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business radio.
In the heart of Accra, nestled in the vibrant neighborhood of East Legon and New Beacon, a 360 multimedia firm has emerged. Introducing Zed Multimedia. With a steadfast focus on lifestyle, leisure, and business, we set out to bring high-value oriented programs that captivate the taste and desires of our audience. From the captivating airwaves of Zed 101.9 FM to the dynamic visuals of Zed TV and the innovative realms of Zed Digital and the incubation of advanced technological knowledge at Zed Tech, every facet of modern media is meticulously curated to engage and inspire. Also, let's not forget the new Finder newspaper, now under the Zed Multimedia umbrella, delivering insightful journalism with a business focus. Join us on the journey where innovation meets inspiration, where lifestyle meets leisure, and where business thrives. Change is here. Zed Multimedia, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform.
Asampaetia Obanyansa foso wo munubia wankana asam Tema futu sam kakre wa supreme Yo kofi Oman ya woman Omani ya memana Genyi baby ako Wacha ya wareni Wonsom wanyinyi pa Asadi pa wofyo ye Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya ifiyena Omani ya woman o Omani ya memana Adi waye no ya Yamichata yemana renya Wonsom wanyinyi pa Sawa ya wanabe Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya ifiyena Wonsom wanyinyi pa Asade pa ofyo yo Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya ifiyena Amabe ya ifiyena Amabe yo Asite be ya ifiyena Oh Amabe ya ifiyena Yena Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya Obra you arabo Amabe ya ifiyena Emina Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya ifiyena Kese Amabe ya ifiyena Obra ya we sabe ya ifiyena ro Ao Amabe ya ifiyena Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya Yamo ni ye Amabe ya ifiyena Abra ya boya Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya Amabe yo Amabe ya ifiyena Abra you arabo Yamo yembera ye Ebe ya ifiyena Sikanya bredo wafa Simpawa weyes na winya Yamishira Mamani payo zefoa Enyanum Yafanya
Yet another Saturday morning, today the 8th day of August in the year of our Lord 2026. A good morning to our cherished listeners and viewers, and you're welcome to the Focus on Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. I must say, or I must extend a heartfelt afi to our friends and brothers who are celebrating their Homowo this week. We're trusting that everybody will stay safe and will enjoy and celebrate our culture to its fullest. Now, today on The Focus, we are going to have a conversation on the constitutional reforms, the CRC report which was presented to the President, the white paper which was issued by the President. More specifically, we're going to have a conversation about the 5-year presidential term and whether it strengthens our democracy. We'll also look at the proposal to reduce the presidential age from 40 years to 35, whether indeed is something that we really will want to have. So for the next 2 hours or more, we're going to have this conversation. My guests are seated in studio who help me do justice to the conversation. You can join us by way of your comments and your contribution to our WhatsApp line 0544321019, 0544321019, or you can join us on our social media handles, that's ZFMGH on Facebook, IG and X, or also on YouTube, Z Multimedia. You can also join us around the world at www.zmultimedia.com. www.zmultimedia.com. You can stream with us online also. You can leave your comments anywhere there or on our WhatsApp line. We are happy to take it. And I must say that today I have seasoned experts in studio. We'll be joined by Professor Bafwa Jimendia, who's a governance expert. We'll also be joined by Mary Awilana Ada, who is Executive Director, Transparency International Ghana. And I currently have with me in studio Dr. Kenneth Keobi, who is the CEO and resident consultant of Kennedy Consult. We'll take a very short breather here. When we come back, we'll take news from around the world. Do not go away.
Zed 101.9 FM.
family to depend on expensive markets for food. He says surviving the floods was only the beginning, as many families are now battling rising food prices and shortages. The Food and Agriculture Organization of the United Nations estimates that more than 275,000 hectares of farmland were damaged, affecting the livelihoods of hundreds of thousands of farmers. The World Food Programme says damaged roads and disrupted transport routes have made it harder to deliver food to affected areas, while reduced local production has pushed prices higher. Experts warn that repeated climate disasters are making recovery more difficult. Mozambique has faced both severe drought and flooding in recent years, leaving vulnerable communities with little time to rebuild. Also in the DRC, health workers at the center of the Ebola outbreak in the Democratic Republic of Congo have gone on strike, demanding unpaid wages and bonuses. The workers in Bunaya, the capital of the Ituri province, say they have not received payments since the outbreak was declared in May. Ituri has recorded nearly 90% of country's Ebola cases, with health workers warning that delays in payments could weaken efforts to control the disease. The protest comes as Ebola cases continue to rise. Government figures show the outbreak has recorded nearly 4,000 confirmed cases, including more than 1,800 deaths, making it the second largest Ebola outbreak ever recorded. Aid organizations say the virus is spreading rapidly, especially in remote areas affected by armed conflict, where reaching communities has become increasingly difficult. The World Health Organization has urged authorities to support frontline workers, while Doctors Without Borders say the response is not moving fast enough to stop new infections. Health officials are also concerned that many new cases are being detected outside known contact networks, increasing the risk of further spread. In US researchers say artificial intelligence has now been used to create new viruses that do not exist in nature, a breakthrough that could transform medical research but also raise concerns about possible misuse. Scientists from Stanford University and Broad Institute of MIT and Harvard use AI to design thousands of genetic sequences based on a naturally occurring virus that attacks bacteria. Researchers then produce hundreds of these designs in a laboratory and identify 16 synthetic viruses that were able to function. The team says a combination of the AI designed viruses was more effective at killing E. coli bacteria than naturally occurring versions, raising hopes that similar technology could one day fight antibiotic-resistant infections. However, experts warn that the same technology could create serious security risks if used to develop harmful pathogens. Infectious disease specialist Isaac Bogok says AI-designed viruses may offer new medical possibilities, but stronger safety controls and monitoring will be needed as the technology develops. Researchers stress that the virus created in this study are bacteriophages, meaning they infect bacteria and cannot infect humans. In Ghana also, Ghana's largest referral facility, that's the Kolebu Teaching Hospital, is facing increasing pressure at this accident and emergency department due to a surge in emergency cases from across the country. Head of the Accident and Emergency Unit, Dr. Henry Bully, says the growing demand for emergency care has placed significant strain on hospital resources, facilities, medical equipment, and healthcare workers. He attributed the situation to rapid population growth without a corresponding expansion of health infrastructure capable of handling complex emergencies. Dr. Bully explained that Kolebu has become a national referral center because of its specialized services and relatively affordable cost of care, resulting in patients being transferred from hospitals that lack the capacity to manage critical cases. He noted that some patients remain in the emergency unit for extended periods while waiting for beds in specialized wards, which contributes to congestion and pressure on staff. Dr. Bule called for increased investment in health infrastructure, more training and deployment of healthcare professionals, and improved services at regional and district hospitals. He warned that without urgent interventions, major referral facilities like Kolebu will continue to face growing challenges as demand for emergency care increases. And also in the Bono region, the Bono Regional Police Command has arrested 9 suspects in connection with the robbery attack at Fiapre Zongo in the Sunyani municipality that resulted in the death of 2 people. The incident occurred on Wednesday, August 5, 2026, when armed men allegedly attacked a mobile money vendor, leading to a shooting incident. Police say officers responded to a distress call, but the suspect had already fled the scene. The mobile money vendor, Amina Abu, and 3 others sustained injuries from gunshots during the attack. An unidentified man wearing a black mask was also found with severe injuries near a house in the area. All victims were taken to the Bono Regional Teaching Hospital, where Ibrahim Osei, aged 40, and the unidentified man later died. Police investigations indicate that the suspect escaped with 30,000 Ghana cedis belonging to the mobile money vendor. Police recovered 6 spent BB cartridges from the scene and intercepted 2 cattle trucks along the Brekum route, leading to the arrest of 9 suspects. The suspects are assisting in investigations and are expected to face court proceedings as police continue efforts to arrest other individuals linked to the attack. And that'll be all for news around the world. If you're just tuning in, you're live on the Focus on Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. We'll take a very short breather here. When we come back, we're going to delve right into the main conversation of whether the 5-year presidential term being proposed will strengthen Ghana's democracy. Again, you can send your contributions, your comments to our WhatsApp line 0544321019, 0544321019, or you can share your comments or leave your comments on our social media handles on Facebook and YouTube, where you find us as Zed Multimedia, or you can listen to us around the world online at www.zedmultimedia.com. Take a very short breather here. Do not go away.
Time now for jubilation. Oh God, I wish I had an answer. Causing sweet flow, our spirits will grow. We're sitting down every day, and then behind you all the smiling sandstorms. The people all know the reason why we still
me today.
All right, thank you also for joining us. So today, we'll start with the 5-year presidential term. And maybe first, let me just hear from everybody where we stand before we go into justifying where we stand, whether we agree or we do not agree. So maybe I'll start with Doctor. Doug, let me find out, do you agree in principle to this proposed increase to a 5-year presidential term? This is just a yes or no before we come and look at the reasoning.
Yeah, before I say yes or no, let me greet all our cherished listeners, and another good morning to Prof and my other colleague on the line. And briefly, let me say I say no. I disagree with the extension of the presidential term from that 4 to the 5-year period.
Okay, so Dr. Obin has declared his stance that he disagrees with the proposed increase in presidential term from 4 to 5 years. Prof, can I hear what, do you also agree or disagree?
I don't disagree with him, but I disagree with the idea that the 5-year term is bad.
You disagree with the idea that the 5-year term
In other words, I disagree with him. I was trying to be a bit innocuous. Not his person, but the whole idea of opposing the 5-year term, I disagree with that idea.
Okay, so Prof is also completely on the other side. Okay, maybe let me turn to Mary also. Mary, can I find out where you stand on this thought?
Could I be nonchalant on this one? Because for me, my belief is that we've seen 4 and 5 years operate in different dispensations, and with that, my thinking is that it could be anything. So I would be in the middle on this. but I tend to, if I need to say yes or no, I may say no, depending on the factors we have seen before. What else would we be adding onto the governance phase if we decide to say yes to a 5-year term?
It's perfectly fine, Mary. You bring in the good diversity we need on the conversation. So you are slightly on the fence, almost jumping to one end, but you still want to stay in the middle. But then let me just start with you, Mary, on this thought on the presidential term. The argument that was proposed by the committee in their report, which was also accepted by the presidency in their white paper, is that typically the 4-year term is not enough for the government to set up its or to execute its policies, because it comes into office 1 year, is now settling down, appointing its ministers and its people. By the next year, they are now testing the grounds to see what it is. By the 3rd year, when they're about to just fly into implementation, they are told elections are coming. So they must just descend and go and campaign. So not much is happening. In previous times also, where we have seen some governments go a very long haul, as you rightfully mentioned, we might not have seen too much change. What do you think is our problem?
Okay, so thank you so much. Let me quickly say that the reasoning of the H20 committee and also others who have proposed this, I know Prof with his leaning would come to that discussion, is the fact that we take too long in setting up government. We take almost another year to initiate campaign because of our political ways of doing things and the way our parties are shaped and formed. And the fact that we are always almost in a campaign regime immediately after we have finished. But you see, democracies are shaped in a way that every political party should be ready to form a government. And that is why in places like the UK and others, we even have shadow governments who are prepared to take over the governance of the state. And so for me, every political party who is worth its salt and wants to rule should have an alternative policy preference, an alternative structure and system in place to take over the affairs of governance without having to use 6 months to put in place the government it wants to rule the people by. That is one. Again, we have seen over time that in our country and in other places where we've seen effectiveness happen, we do not have to go in looking into the issues around who then is suitable, who is not suitable, because those analysis would have been done in the first place. Otherwise, we do not have a reason or a justification to want to be in government. Our government, we are saying that we can. We have the expertise. We have the people. We know the architecture, and we know the governance framework. And so we don't have to take too much time to ensure that we are doing this. Unfortunately, we have seen different. And for me, I think the issues around continuity and the way we have shaped our transitions have been the biggest bane for our democracy in this country. We all know that even when there are differences in the parties who are taking office, there is a transition process guided by the transition architecture. And so there must not be any discontinuity, either in policy, in projects, and whatever. But the actual thing we do when we come in is to then begin to interrogate what the other was doing which was not right, and then begin to do a whole lot of investigations around it instead of focusing on government. So there is inconsistency in the transition and continuity regime. Then we are saddled also with issues around the accountability of the previous government, and we are fixated on that, and we get that is. Let me quickly say that I am not saying that we shouldn't, because accountability is important. But when it becomes the main issue we are looking into, then we have problems. Then we see the issues of the political appointments, which also is one of the key factors of dragging the whole show. Politicization of appointments instead of looking into who is really ready to do this. And if even we should have been thinking about those, why didn't we do it before we took over? So that we have everything in place, and then we go on from there as a people. We have seen it happen in other places. We have a British system which almost always in the past 3-4 years has had more than 3 prime ministers. And yet the system continues to flow because it has grown, it has matured, and is able to take control in those systems. So we need to ensure that we are putting in place institutional incentives to navigate the nuances of if even it were a 1-year term. So we want to see the excesses that have been accommodated in the past reduced. We want to see our oversight bodies kick into place to ensure that they are doing the work they are supposed to be doing. And we want to see more proactiveness on the part of the government in waiting, so that when they take over, they are doing the right things instead of just waiting and negotiating forever to get governments in place. And even when they are finished negotiating, then they set another political campaigning regime, because our regimes around this are not robust and strong enough. And let me end by saying that in places like Cote d'Ivoire, India, and the rest, there are clear limitations as to how we operate some of these things. So parties who get voted into power do not just start the campaign process all over again to distract from the governance process. And so we need to see that we are filling some of these gaps, and I believe that the Constitutional Review Commission, which has done a lot since 2011, where we had one in the previous government, and this current one, has done some very good work for us, and we need to see that we implement them. But as I have said, to conclude, we are doing this to ourselves. We could even have a 2-year regime. And if the government is actually a party in waiting, they shouldn't have challenges implementing their policies and the very beautiful programmatic areas they have for us in consistence with our national development plan, which again is another challenge that I need to conclude on. That because we do not have a robust regime around us, we continue to allow this system to operate in a very fluid manner, depending totally and wholly on party manifestos, which has not inured to our good.
Interesting perspective there you see, I share with us, Doctor. But let me find out from you. You see that in this country, from what we have seen, every government comes with an ideology. And over the years, for the past 70 years, we have seen different ideologies. We have seen state-led industrialization ideologies. We have seen Pan-Africanism. We have seen social democracies. We have seen liberal conservations, different forms of ideology by different governments. Now, your continuity bit, don't you think is going to be a little problematic? Because if, let's say, the government in power has, let's say, it's a conservative government, but the transitioning government is coming with, let's say, social democracy. Don't you think they'll need time to adjust, to transition, then they're able to implement the ideology which they think is going to help the country?
And so, let me quickly come again to the issue of this country's challenge, which has been the absence or the lack of consistency when it comes to the national development agenda. So, if we had a plan that is the national priority for all of us, then ideology would feed into those plans. And so whether you are a social democrat, whether you are economically acclaimed, you would certainly be feeding into. And let me take this from a policy perspective. If you are designing policy for a country you would want to rule, then you should be shaping it on existence of what the country would want you to help them achieve. Then you would then be referencing and basing this on your ideology. And again, we have seen in the past, and for over 30 years of this current experiment, that whether they are Democrats, social democrats, or they are economically aligned, they have come to this agenda and policy. Either it is a section of the agenda, it is policy implementation, or taking a forward look at it and coming back. So we've seen the NPP government, which is more aligned to the economics, do a lot of social democratic policies, or been a lot more social protection inclined than we have seen of those who have said they are social democrats, even though they've also done a lot in that regime. So it's not necessarily about ideology influencing in the policy space. It is the lack of coherence when it comes to the national development agenda, which parties are supposed to feed into and which parties are supposed to operationalize. And for me, I believe that going forward, what we need to do is to ensure that the institutional architecture is ensuring that this flows. Otherwise, we will come back to the discussion that, these people are socially inclined and their policy alternatives are more inclined towards getting the nation to see from a certain perspective. They want to bring in more social protection policies. They want to ensure that the people are protected. We are not doing things that would affect them. And the other is doing this. That is, for me, our being. And it is not about doing that. And I said again that in the agenda where we believe this, and it is the national interest we are working towards, then certainly I don't think that it's about ideology totally. It is also about the political interest. It is also about seeking to show that we are in power now and we have the better alternatives. And for me, that's what we all should be thinking about, the national interest at the end of the day, and making sure that our political parties are so inclined to the national interest and they are feeding from that interest, which is supposed to inure to the people of Ghana.
Good point you make on the fact that we don't have consistency in national development plans. And that's why we talk about these ideological differences. But research has also shown that from all the other countries we know, or many of the other countries we know, where there are robust development plans that government after government must stick to, those plans were developed over a period. In fact, there's none of these countries which will show that they had a government of 4 years changing to the next 4 years who could establish these development plans. For most of them, they would have started with a dictator or somebody who would have been in government for a long period. And I reference places like Singapore and the rest where they had Lee Kuan Yew in power for so many years. He managed to consolidate the country, establish proper plans. Now that he's no more, they can run elections every 4 years, and the country literally can run on an autopilot. Don't you think that in this call for a national development plan, we need to give a government a longer period to establish even what national interest means, for the people to understand and buy into that idea of what the national interest is? Then subsequently, whichever government comes, it can just operationalize that with the Ghanaian people have internalized and have adopted for themselves as a workable plan that they want to go with. Won't you think that that will then call for a longer period for a particular government?
Unfortunately, I do not think so. You know, the framers of the Constitution gave opportunity for a 4-year tenure. That's when the people of Ghana envision and see experience that within those 4 years, whoever has been given opportunity to rule or to superintend over the affairs of the state has done a good job and needs continuity. You are given another 4 years based on which to then firm up and ground the basic things you would have done in those 4 years into concrete actions and concrete developmental outcomes. Yes, these take time. National development plans evolve with experience, and we have seen it happen in many of the countries across the globe. You mentioned clearly Singapore, which took a longer time after a dictator to get the process going. We have seen over time Rwanda, which may not be an ideal example for me, but I can cite that as well, where they have had someone, a strong leader over time who has shown very good initiative in framing a vision for the country, which we all talk about and applaud. We see the South Africans of our time, and then places like Malaysia to add to that discussion. But then, do not let us forget that Ghana's environment is already taking, since 93, we started this. We are in 2026. That's over 20 years.
30
and
even,
so,
over 30.
30, thank you. 3 decades down the line, we should be able to come to the discussion with something we have identified. And let me come to reflect on what has happened before. The current chair of the NDPC started the process when he had opportunity the last time as the CEO also to put in place a 40-year national development plan, which we didn't work with. We have been working with the Ghana, we did the Ghana Vision 2020. We went on to do the Ghana Shared Growth and Development Agenda 1 and 2. We also did the National Medium Term National Development Plan. And in all of these, reflecting very concrete and clear, cogent ideas. Why are we, as a people, not sticking to this? In this current government, we have seen a lot of novel ideas being rolled out. in the research agenda. Why are we not taking this discussion up to ensure that over time the lessons we have learned, that this current experiment is not tenable? We cannot handpick, choose which we want to do and what we do not want to do. And then every time we have a cyclical challenge of some of the basic things we should have overcome over time, because we've decided that for certain political interests, we would remain and we would ground our ideologies in what we decide as the interest of this country, because we feel that it is 4 years. It is not so. It is not so at all. And we can also talk about examples of the U.S., which has also grown over time. So whoever is there, whether you are a Democrat, you are a Republican, you are feeding into the national interest, prioritizing your agenda when it comes to ideology, which we do not discount. We cannot take away people's rights of believing in certain things from them. But the right to deny the people of the development they need, which should be structured, which should be purposive, intentional, and which should be rolled out over a period, it's not tenable. And this is a period where we must all then come back to reflect that if Singapore did it after a long time, remember Ghana also had a long time of military rule. And if others have done it, then perhaps this is a time for us to reflect that agenda, to ensure that we have consistency, and to also demand some accountability from our political parties who sit aloof and then they come in to say we do not have time. There is not enough time for us to do. And so for that matter, you must extend our tenure. You can give them 10 years and this argument will still be the same if we do not structure the systems and put in place the basic architecture to ensure we are consistent with policy.
Very interesting thought you have shared with us, Mary. Let me turn my attention to studio. And Prof, maybe I'll start with you. Mary has raised some very good arguments on the real problem we have, and not necessarily on the term, the time frame, but we have problems of national development plans, national interests, which even as she says, if we give them 10 years, even 20 years, if care is not taken, we'll come to the same spot, which we have seen before anyway. We have seen some governments in this country, they've been at the helm of affairs in excess of 15 years, 20 years. But it looks like things did not change much. Prof, do you not think that the term, given that 5-year term, it's only as just solving the problem just at a superficial level, and that there are bigger problems solved that if we're able to solve those underlying problems, as Mary mentioned, even if we give them 2 years, they can still execute their mandate?
Well, thank you. And Mary, good to hear your voice, as usual.
Thank you, Prof.
First of all, let me say that the whole notion of term limitation, there's no myth about it. Why a country decides to go 5, 4, 6, 7, as France used to before it came down to 5. There's no magic about it. It depends on a country's own environment, the history, the culture, and certain specific reasons why they think they should plug the term to a certain limit. Having made that general comment, it's also important, I remember Mary referring to the British system, where they're always ready to step in, especially over 10 years, they've had about 8 or so governments. If they didn't have a strong systems, I'm sure the country would have collapsed. Yeah. But the difference is that the British parliamentary system allows a government to fall any time, and therefore the system has prepared them, people like shadow ministers and others to step in so they can prepare somehow. The presidential system doesn't have that. Ghana, whether the president is good or bad, unless there are some impeachable issues, the president will serve the full term. So that may explain why in Britain we have shadow ministers who are always ready to step in. But let me say this. Mary has made a good point about the need for parties to be ready to come in any time. And also this issue about national development that you raised. Unfortunately, Ghana, we don't have one development agenda, unfortunately. Even though the Constitution has set up the National Development Commission,
the NDPC.
NDPC, to plan for us. But as you know, the parties that we have had in this republic have not been willing to abide by that. So they come in, reconstitute the NDPC, and begins to work on his own. When they leave, and the next government comes and appoints new people. Even if the NDPC succeeds in putting a program together, the next government comes and says, we don't like it, as it happened, as you know, in the past. So the NDPC has been rendered almost useless, in my view, completely useless. They spend a lot of money, pay the staff, do a good job, and nobody minds it, because the parties will claim we came in with our, what you call a manifesto, and we are going by the manifesto, irrespective of what the NDPC has done. So for me, the NDPC has been rendered, it's a useful thing, but it's been rendered completely useless by the political parties. Now, I'm not sure I have debated this before. Is there any ideology to Ghana's political parties? One party says a social democrat. The other party, I don't know, property owning democracy. I think these are hollow concepts they throw around. Ultimately, each of these parties will come to power and do exactly what the other party has done in terms of development. Either you decide to put a stop to an ongoing project because for whatever reason you don't like it, and causes financial loss and go on, and nothing happens. So I'm not interested in the so-called ideology. They don't have any ideology. The ideologies simply come, rule, loot if you can, steal if you can, and get away with it if you can. I mean, it's as simple as that.
For all the parties in government?
Oh, the two parties that have been ruling Ghana, why don't we see? I've been around during this past 33 years. And I don't see, there are some interesting differences.
Yeah.
But overall, what do they do? In the end, well, we are here to see Mahama's second term.
Yeah.
Hopefully, it will be very different from the past. Hopefully. We are here to make that call.
But he's still pursuing their ideology of the social democracy.
What is social democracy?
Energy into transforming the social standing of everybody.
Look, when you talk of social programs, then I'll credit NPP under Kufuor more than any other government.
Okay.
Kufuor brought more radical social changes to our system, which continues in many ways. We think of the national health care, school feeding programs, mass metro, and on and on. Kufuor added the free exactly. All these are social programs. And NDC comes, they introduce some too, or they continue what has been introduced. So
they have the Mahama care and all that.
Mahama care is medical. It's almost like the health care. So, you know, so in effect, I'm saying that if you are talking about social programs, both parties have done well and about the same thing. I don't see major differences between the two parties. Back to the central question of the tenure. You see, in our neighborhood, all the countries, with the exception of Nigeria, I believe, have 5-year terms. Cote d'Ivoire, Senegal. Liberia has 6 years. Kenya has 5. And like that. So as I say, you choose what will fit you. In the case of Ghana, I think there's one element I will add to my opposition to the no 5-year term. Does it make sense?
It makes sense.
Yeah. A bit eloquent.
Makes sense.
Why I support a 5-year term. You see, first, take Ghana's politics into consideration. The way and manner we conduct our politics, especially around elections, when the whole nation is put on a tinderbox, where security becomes a major problem for us. So every 4 years, We are mobilizing the military, the police, and other security agencies to help run an election. Some die in almost every election of this republic. At least one person dies. In cases 8, at times 10. Those who get wounded and maimed, I don't know the number. Every 4 years we suffer this.
Yeah.
Then all the churches and the mosques will be praying every day. Some go to the Independence Square and roll their bodies on the ground, praying to God for Ghana to be saved. And every 4 years we suffer that. Have you put a monetary term on that suffering? The soldiers we deploy, the police we mobilize, the civilians, the prayers, stopping work to pray for 6 days. Have you costed it? You see, people don't think about that. It costs a lot.
Yeah.
And that's in addition to almost $800 million that the electoral commissioner will spend conducting an election. So there's a heavy financial cost to that. So if you have 4 years and we have 20 years to go, let's put in the 20 years. How many elections do we have?
About
Five.
Five. Yeah, 5. 4, 5, 20.
If that is if you are doing 4-year tenure.
Yeah.
But if you're doing 5-year tenure, you have 4. At least we save one election, the cost that I've enumerated, at least we save that. That's the monetary cost. And in 5, you can put cost on the security matters, the concerns, people not sleeping and getting killed and maimed. That's a heavy cost. So the 5-year term gives us at least one period of peacefulness in the country. And peace has a cost. Peace has a cost, So for me, that's important. And that's in addition to the fact that it gives time.
Okay.
But the point is this. Just pray that any time we have elections, we elect a good person to be the leader. Because, like you mentioned, Singapore, I think Mary did. Singapore's success is more in terms of the human quality they have and their fortune to have a leader who started them from the scratch.
Yeah.
And for 28 years or so.
Who built a good system also.
Exactly. Built a good system before he left the scene.
Yeah.
You can call it one-man rule or whatever.
Yeah.
It wasn't democracy like Ghanaians have.
Absolutely.
So when we are comparing ourselves to a country like Singapore, let's be careful. Ghanaians, I don't even know if we move away a bit from the democracy that we have. Because we have so many lawyers in our country. We have produced so many lawyers simply to do politics. And everything is subjected to the law. Singapore never had that.
Yeah.
That's why they could proceed.
Yeah.
Malaysia never had that. South Korea, when General Park took over and did it before he went to the seminary, they never had that. So I'm saying that if you want progress, look to your own environment and see what stops you from doing what others did. And we are not.
But Prof, on that,
yes,
you see
right.
that we've also tried that system before, maybe under Chairman Rollins and all these other guys, where we had one person at the helm of affairs for a long time, but we also didn't see much of it.
You're right. You're right. And I'm not using longevity as a measure of progress.
Okay.
The longer you stay doesn't mean you do better. Otherwise, Rollins is the one we have to hold responsible for not changing the country.
Yeah.
Because he has 11 years free as a military ruler and 8 years as a constitutional leader. And I can't imagine any time in our history ever where somebody will rule this country for 19 years like he did. So if longevity were to determine progress, then Ghana must be in the ranks of Malaysia by now, because it took Malaysia 22 years, Singapore about 23 years.
Which we started with them around the same time.
Exactly. In the late 50s, we were better off, statistically speaking, economic statistics, we were better off. So it's a question of the quality of the leader. That's what I'm saying. Even though I won the 5 years, my emphasis is on the quality of leadership. Because if you make it 5 years, and you have a poor leader that you cannot change until 5 years, then you are locked up. You cry for 5 years. especially if the impeachable issues are not coming forth. Then at the same time, you have a very good leader. 5 years, you wish the leader stays on. You see, so again, I will place my emphasis on the quality of leadership that we should be able to have. And then having a national agreement on one development agenda, even if we don't have the leadership I'm talking about. If the law requires every party to subscribe to a national agenda that we have, then irrespective of the party in power, we can be reasonably assured that the key pillars of that development agenda will be held fast.
But interestingly, Prof, on the quality of leader you speak of, does it not come to, or is our problem maybe not on the quality of system we have rather? Because then we have a built system where even if you bring, as they say elsewhere, you bring a pope, the pope may be corrupted in that system. So no matter your quality as a leader, if you put into maybe the non-existent systems we have, you may fall into a bad leader, and we'll criticize you as a bad leader. But maybe in actual sense, if that same person had been placed in a functional system, he would have done extremely well. Don't you think that we shouldn't focus again, maybe not on the person, as you rightfully mentioned, that we shouldn't think of the longevity. Also, shouldn't it not be of the person? Because we've seen other countries, I'll mention the country's name, where we know the quality of leader they have is not the best, but the system itself is able to force him to comply. So his off problems are just marginal, but the system has a focus, is running. Excellent point.
Excellent point. And I'm happy because just 2 weeks or so ago, I invited to address the Chartered Institute for Managers and Administrators and Managing Consultants. They had the annual conference, and I was one of the speakers. And I spoke exactly on the question of systems and values. So I see your point. Let me dramatize it for all of us to know. Yeah. Some years ago, those of you or others who used to travel a lot outside the country, in the 70s, 80s, 90s, I don't know if you can recall how the Kotoka International Airport was, if you are traveling in or out. Yeah. Okay? It was such a disorganized place. You go and you make one step, somebody stops you and takes some money from you. Yeah. That was the system we had. Yeah. Today, as we speak, it's a different ball game. Yeah. It's not just the buildings that have been rebuilt. It's the new system they have put in place. Yeah. Even where you park is regulated. Yeah. That is what you're talking about. In the same way, another quick example. Ghanaians, people like us, we drive here. If we travel out to the United States or Britain, we drive differently. Here we drive anyhow. Anyhow, yeah. It's a system. Because in the US and the UK, if you drive recklessly, within a second, you'll be stopped. Yeah. Cameras are watching, the police are there, and once you are stopped, the law will take its course. Tickets are issued, nobody to beg. Nobody to beg. It's running. It's the system they've put in place. Yeah. Here is the opposite. So you're right. If we can put in systems, both in terms of our governance structures and other things, it will help a lot to regulate good behavior. Okay. Yeah. So coming back to your point, therefore, leadership, even if you have the best of leader and the leader fails to get the right systems for the country, the leader will fail. So on that score, I agree. Yeah. Yeah. Okay, let me turn my attention to Doctor.
Prof agrees to which one?
Prof agrees to the fact that it's not about necessarily the quality of the leader, but it should be linked to the system that the
both should go together.
Yeah.
So eventually, his conclusion is that the term need not be increased.
No, he's not saying that.
I never said that.
No, he's not saying that. But I think to be fair to Prof has appreciates the fact that he goes for the long term, but not just the long term in vacuum that just give the person 5 years or 10 years. There should be underlining factors to put in place. They must move hand in hand.
So when you bring that into the constitutional reform that we're talking about, how are we going to get that kind of quality leadership that would need an increase in the term?
Yeah.
But if we just go by the written policy that is now increased to 5-year period, without the other issues Prof has raised, for instance, then we come back to the same point when we end up electing someone who may not have the kind of quality that we intend to implement within that 5-year period.
Mm. But if we think of this also in the light of...
build that into the reform that we are talking about?
If you think of this in the light of the broader Constitutional Review Commission's work, there are a lot of other proposals they've made anyway, which some of them are meant to... I know the president's salary, the... what's the name? Those Article 1 PECs and all that. There's been proposals and amendments on them.
Yes. So in that sense, if you ask me, the reason why I oppose the 5-year term is the fact that there are certain fundamental issues that affect the effective running of the 4-year period. And therefore, if we need to make any amendment, then we need to tackle those amendments that affect the 4-year period.
Mm.
And when you go into the issues that have been raised, or some of the points that have been raised by Prof and Mary, for instance, then we all see that there are certain fundamental issues that are affecting the running of the 4-year period.
Mm.
Why are we saying so? The 4-year period, like Mary concluded, if we can look at it critically with the functions or the effects of those activities that affect the effective running of the 4-year period, you can even make it 2 years and the president can be effective. Which ones can we look at? The time to appoint ministers of state and other political figures who are to support the president to sort of run that 4-year period is a major problem.
Mm.
Why is it a major problem? We have a parliamentary system that runs alongside the presidential system.
Yeah.
We don't have a definite time for campaigning. In most of these democratic countries, after elections, they all come together and help build the country. There's time that campaign periods are opened for people to also now start coming up with alternatives to the existing government. We don't have it that way because our parliamentarians are elected alongside the president.
Mm.
The parliamentarian who is elected from a constituency is said to have been the same person who would have promoted the election of the president because he is campaigning on dual purpose for his seat and also for the president. So now when the president is elected, who and who is he supposed to appoint as ministers? We made you the president. We campaigned in our constituencies for them to vote for our parliamentary candidate who we know and exists within the constituency. And once we know that Mr. A is the parliamentary candidate for, let's say, NDC, and the people in the constituency know him, he's the same person who is going to campaign for the presidential candidate of the NDC. So at the end of the period, if the president is elected, who should he appoint to help him as a minister? He should then look at all those MPs who have been elected and then offer them some kind of ministerial positions and others in compensation to the effort they have made in electing him.
Mm.
And that is the major problem. And where the constitution goes ahead, president, if now NDC has a 4 or something, 6, and all these MPs helped in bringing Mahama into the presidency, and he is to appoint majority of his ministers from these same people, it calls for lobbying. So they have to lobby the president. Hey, we as your German people, we voted for you, now MP, and therefore make our MP a minister, and so forth.
But that bet is almost everywhere, even though in different forms. But it's present almost everywhere.
It's not present in most.
In different forms, maybe not as clear as, but in different forms.
Especially where you have the parliamentary election separate from the presidential. So if you have them separate, then you are able to, give the president the chance to elect.
Oh, so you are proposing that we should have a separate. It shouldn't be concurrent.
It's one of the major problems I'm advocating for.
Okay.
That we should have separate presidential
we did
elections.
It before.
Yes.
Yeah, I think
we
92.
did it before. We should have separate presidential elections, and we should have separate parliamentary elections. And Kwame, what I also support is the fact that we want to reform the constitution to ensure that MPs are not made ministers.
Yeah.
If MPs are not made ministers, they can then concentrate on activities that affect
at all. We shouldn't
areas.
have MPs at all.
No, the MPs should not be made ministers.
Like in the US.
Yeah.
Like in the US. And the same proposal that has come up.
Yeah.
And I support that review, the constitutional review, that MPs must concentrate on their legislative. You go to parliament, most MPs are absent. So what is the quality of the output that comes from parliament when most of them are normally absent, unless it's coming to elections that you just pull all of them from wherever they are. Even if you are on sick bed, you can be brought to come and vote. It doesn't give us the kind of quality that should come from parliament. I mean, if you have been to parliamentary committee sittings, you agree with me that even sometimes the committees, they find it difficult to, gather and have meetings on issues that they need to address. Because some of them are ministers elsewhere. And when you need a minister to concentrate on his work, he's also supposed to travel back to his constituency at some times to, attend funerals and weddings and others in order to keep.
But often, not sometimes. Almost every Saturday. I'm sure by now almost all of them are somewhere.
Yes. So the review will have certain fundamental shifts, that will leave government to concentrate on its activities. So if you are able to get some of these reviews done, and which are already contained in the reforms that have been put in place, we should be able to make do with a 4-year period. Look at the number of ministers. Now next time, look at the ministers that were appointed. About 122 or 23 ministers were appointed.
But now they are trying to cap it to about 60 or so.
So let me come to that. If you have 122 ministers or even 100 ministers, how do you monitor them? How do you find out how they are performing and so forth? The last time I was in Kenya, I think somewhere in 2021, the number of ministers in Kenya as at that time was 28. And Kenya is about 4 times the size of Ghana. Now, if they are using, let's say 28, I don't know the number now anyway, but if they were in 28 at that time, and they were able to govern the country 4 times the size of Ghana, do we need that kind of 100 ministers of state and so forth? And currently, Mahama has proved it. And working with about 60 ministers, or is it 59 or something thereabout. And if the review is capping the ministers at 57, and they are not from parliament, they are from within the technocrats and others who can help the president govern effectively, while the legislature is also concentrating on its activities with its number. You don't need more than that 4-year period.
But Prof makes it, okay.
And again, this review on the parliamentary side, that will also take you to the 5 years, and which is also, Prof was mentioning costs, which as a professional accountant.
That's what I was even coming to.
Yes, I will not look at it from that side, because the fact that you have reduced a 20-year period, which we cannot even look at the certainty whether we can even move into the 5-year, the 20-year period with this current constitution, because history also has to back us. If we look at the 1969 constitution, it made provision for 4 years. If you look at the 1979 provision, it made provision for presidential 4 years. It is only the 1960 constitution that gave us 5 years, and then the time we're reviewing it in 1965, it also came out with another 5 years, but then it was a one-party system. So when we look at cost, it is not the actual spending, but we have to look at the opportunity cost, the probability whether the constitution will survive the test of time. And if we are to look at the constitution surviving a test of time, we should look at the nature of our opposition, the nature of how the country is divided. For how long can opposition party remain or wait for the next probable election? Are all factors. So when you have a country that is so divided, MPP, NDC, I can bet you that the opportunity cost of extending it to the 5-year period may be the cost that can destabilize the constitution.
That one extra year?
Yes, and when it is short period, opposition members in a divided area are ready to wait. It's not long. So even if, like Prof rightly mentioned, we don't have that impeachment system where if a president is not doing well, we can quickly impeach like it happens in most of the democratic dispensations, because our structures are weak. Prof mentioned it, Mary mentioned it. NDP weak, all the other bodies that serve as check and balances like SHRAJ, Council of State and others, all tend to be aligned to the existing precedent. So if you extend the period, it is the same process that is going to exist. And that is those things that when it tends to trigger a divided country because the people think they cannot wait, and therefore a 5-year period is part of it. And those are the factors that I think let's remain at the 4-year period. Prof mentioned longevity.
But before I go into longevity, let me just stay with you on the cost a little.
Yeah.
Because as Prof mentioned the statistic that there's electoral commission will spend about 80 million organizing elections.
Yeah.
In fact, the presidential campaign itself, the president itself may spend in excess of 100 million for the presidential campaign.
Yeah.
We've not spoken of members of parliament also across the country.
Correct.
Now, this is a huge financial burden placed on presidency, placed on the parliamentary, placed on the entire country. Now, don't you think that this financial burden is even part of the reason why some of them are inefficient? Because whilst you're working, your biggest headache is also to raise money. So you're going around, some of them we are told are engaging in all sort of illegal things. But when you know that now this financial burden is lessened a bit, won't it then motivate you to work?
Thank you. You see, the mistake we all do in politics, especially under democracy, is to estimate the cost of elections and that kind. What has been the reason for coup d'etats? One of the basic reasons that we have had coup d'etats is the fact that democracy is too expensive. If you are to cost the elections, if you are to, on every 4-year period, if you are to cost the managing the presidency, if you are to cost the number of parliamentarians we have, which that one too, I disagree that we are increasing the number. I disagree seriously that we are increasing the number from that existing 276.
The proposal, you mean?
Yes, I disagree. Yeah. Because, like Prof said, how will democracy thrive? You see, we should think about how the democracy or the constitution will survive.
But isn't the reason for the coup more on mismanagement of resources?
No, I'm coming. We are looking at the cost of managing the democratic dispensation. If the cost is so high, how do we free resources to go and develop the country? Currently, we are all crying that the taxes and our revenues, we are using around 45 to about 48% of our revenue for paying salaries. And these are heavy costs. How do we free resources to develop? So governments come in and out, and all they are doing is social interventions. Majority of the people are poor. And our population is also growing.
Yeah.
We are not planning. I was in China last November, and I tell you, when we went through what we went through to study over there, from the educational systems and the plans that take place before somebody comes out, he's placed, whether into sports, whether into engineering. In fact, it's so beautiful. What do we have here? We don't have that plan. There are so many people, graduates and others in the streets. And these are people that we need to free the resources for them to be, for development to take place so that they can benefit. It's not always that we have to develop social interventions, building markets and building hospitals and others. If the people are good, living in good conditions, taking good salaries, enjoying good food, 3 square meals a day, why do you need money to go and do social interventions? The people develop themselves and they are able to save and develop the economy. But here we are, all our resources are used to pay salaries, are used to pay for the democracy we are running. Look at the cost of maintaining one minister, and we have 276 of them, and we plan to add more to 300.
We members of parliament?
Yes. Why? Why do we have to do that? How are we going to free resources to go and help the poor people who we even go campaigning and creating all that kind of chaos for us to win elections? So I'm saying that let's look at the cost of our democracy. Let's minimize the cost of our democracy.
My friend is supporting me.
When we minimize the cost, you see, Prof, I agree with you in most of the points you raised. So do I agree with Mary in most of the points we made.
In fact, we all agree on the underlying factors.
So we don't need to increase the
cost of democracy.
The cost of democracy.
So if you cut down
and in
the
that
elections,
case, no, we are not cutting down the elections. We are maintaining the elections to prepare the people, the mind of the people.
So that 300 or 400 million makes no difference?
Yes, because where we are cutting are the number of ministers, we are cutting the number of parliamentarians, we are cutting the cost of managing parliamentarians on their job, and then we are cutting the cost from getting ministers to concentrate on their jobs and support the president. These are cost-saving measures, and it puts stability in the economy. We free resources to develop the people, not always providing social interventions, NHI card that doesn't fetch the person the kind of health care the person needs. Those are not what we need. What we need is freeing resources from the democratic dispensation. The cost to Prof saying that you can do 5 years, you can do 4 times in 5 years if you do 5 years. It doesn't really hold because it's development and the upgrading, well-being of the people that will sustain the constitution into the 20-year period. And how do we do that? Is what we need to cut the cost of democracy, of managing the democratic dispensations. If you take what do you call it, the chiefs, for instance, which we are trying to reform to bring chiefs into
the governance
structure. We can't run away from making chiefs part of our governance system. because they hold serious influence in the societies. And when you carve a constitution and you ban chiefs, and when you want to go and campaign, you go and greet the chief to take permission to go and meet his people, then what are we talking about? We should be able to have the constitution and make it sustainable. It is the sustainability of the constitution that will bring development. And therefore, it is not the number of years you are giving to the president. Let's look at it from that lens and then ensure that we are able to cut down the actual cost of running the democracy, free resources to help develop the country. And then everything will make sure that the constitution survives into the future that we are all planning to have.
Right. Let me turn my attention to Mary shortly. There's been a lot of conversation in studio now. We have seen that many of our problems, we have underlying problems. If I have a comment online where somebody, Kelvin, he sends a comment that I think maybe in response to Prof's comment that he says that in fact the Ghanaian leaders, they are the same. Even if he's not like that and you put him in the system will change him.
Yes, that's
so
true.
That's really an issue of mismanagement, corruption, and what have you. Mary, from what you said, from where you sit, this issue of corruption, do you think we can ever erode it from our political fabric?
Why not? We can. We have seen countries who have done so over their constitutional dispensation, or as the countries have grown. We saw Singapore, which was able to reverse a very negative trend where corruption and impunity were the order of the day, to a very ethical society which is grounded in law, in strong institutions, and in systems. People would have said that perhaps the person who put it in place is the reason, but they have outlived that person, and they still have these systems which are working very meticulously, and we all are praising them and spotlighting them in the various good practices we talk about. We can make gains in the fight against corruption, but as a people, we need to be able to overcome some of the things we have come to see that is being normalized. People are accepting unacceptable ethical behaviors in the bureaucracy as normal. The issues around gift giving, which have been clearly misinterpreted, is one of them. People expect to be thanked for every activity and for every favor we make to others. When we do that, then we are putting in place a demand sort of rightful expectation behavior across the bureaucracy, and that is not right. That cannot help us to erode the issues around corruption, because we expect that the bureaucracy should serve the interests of the people, and where services are procured, those services are procured professionally and from professionals who are paid to do so. Again, we can only make the inroads in the fight against corruption if the political economy of corruption changes. I say the political economy of corruption because it's the whole architecture which has been fueled by the politicization of our elections. So elections then take the center stage of everything we do. And in this electoral process, we have seen over time the issues around weaknesses in the electoral regime per the Political Parties Act, which has not clearly spelled out sanctions for non-compliance. We see an electoral law that talks about the parties which are contesting coming to accountability, but not the individuals. And we have seen over time how that has been taken advantage of. Yeah. So the party gives accounts, and the MPs through which most of the illegal sources of funds come through do not give account. We have also seen foreign influence in our elections, which is not supposed to happen. We have seen illegitimate, organized, strategic, organized crime, illegal monies coming into our policy space to influence election and therefore thereafter policy. So we are not able to stand our grounds when it comes to ensuring that we have consistency in policy formulation and policy implementation. Cases in point I can talk about is the illicit financial flows we see every day, is the illegal mining we all glaringly see but are not able to stop because there are influential and powerful forces who are ensuring that these continue to go on because they are fueling the campaigns and fueling the political architecture with these illegal resources. So therefore, behind the scenes, we have seen elected officials, but behind the scenes, there are influential forces whom we refer to as the captors of the state. So a lot of political capture happening because we see those people are funded and therefore it's difficult. There you also see the issues around procurement corruption because people have funded the political interests, then they must be paid back. When it's payback time, you need to find ways of undermining the systems, you need to find ways of ignoring the systems, and you need to find ways of satisfying those captors who have influenced the system. In other spaces, they have been able to make gains in removing some of these structures. But then also, because we don't see the dividends of our democracy in the good roads, in the good services like the hospitals and good schools for our children, and in the increasing unemployment rates, which is leaving the youth with the perception that the only gains they can make in life is when they enter politics, then the issue of corruption becomes redundant to them. They know that Esimesi stole and he was not caught. And if Esimesi stole and he was not caught, then Obintin can also steal and get away with it. Esimesi was a teacher last year. Esimesi has become a minister, and in 2 years, Esimesi has built a story building. His source of wealth is questionable, but nobody is able to hold him against it. Our laws, again, I say, are short and deficient when it comes to the issues around unexplained wealth. And the appetite of the youth incrementally is shifting towards the issues around politics. It's not bad to want to be a politician, but it is bad if the thinking or our perspectives are shaped by the fact that we want to make wealth. So we can fight corruption if the sanctions are punitive, if the sanctions are detrimental, and if the sanctions speak loudly and they are implemented very fast, quickly, expeditiously, without anyone trying to interfere in the process. And again, let me give an example of the SP's office, who the first SP had to resign because he clearly indicated the strings were being pulled for him to go towards lines which he refused to. Again, the Auditor General, former Auditor General Domelogo, was pushed out because he had decided to fight a certain system that was being perpetrated, which he didn't want to be part of. And so, you see, when sanctions are selective, they do not help us in ameliorating behavior towards negative reinforcement. If we see that behavior is positively reinforced towards wrong, then people will continue to do what they do without any fear whatsoever. Finally, if we see our politicians mass up, and this again is not just for the MPP, but also for the NDC, mass up to support wrongdoing when people have been alleged to have committed certain crimes, and the law is trying to take its course in ensuring that they get the needed, or the law takes its course, then we are sending the wrong picture. And globally, this also influences some of the scores we get when it comes to the fight against corruption. We have seen the NDC mass up at the CID. We have seen the MPP do it. And for unexplained reasons, they continue to do it. I am not too sure if that is to show political support for people who have done so much injustice to this nation. So if we are to fight corruption, the citizen must begin by ensuring that we reject, we denounce, and then we also take our role in reporting corruption. The bureaucrat must ensure that the law is working, and the media, you who is asking me the questions this morning, must ensure that the cases do not die, do not be bought, and don't allow the cases to die a natural death or kill them, as is happening in some of the spaces. And then we must ensure that we reflect our political culture in ensuring that elections do not promote corruption, because in many of the instances, it is the one which does. Let us reduce the period of our electioneering. Let us put in place stringent regimes for accountability when it comes to both party and candidates. And let us all ensure that dirty money does not infiltrate our spaces. When those are attempted, let's make punishment so punitive and so glaring that anyone who is even dreaming about it will not let that dream actualize.
Absolutely. Many thanks to you, Mary Awolana Ada, for spending your Saturday morning with us. We know you had a very tight schedule, but you had to make time to have this conversation with us. We are extremely grateful for your time.
Thank you for having me, and thank you to the other panelists. Thank you.
All right, thank you very much. So we've been speaking to Mary Awolana Ada, who is the Executive Director, Transparency International, Ghana. And Prof, I'm going to turn to you. Now, on your longevity conversation, let me go into your field. And again, for me, I consider you the living expert of the...
That's too much for me.
The living expert of the Champon regime.
Let's honor you.
No, I'm not sure, as I said the last time, I'm not sure there's anybody who has spent time researching on the truth of the Champon regime.
Yes,
I mean, all of us knew the propaganda. And for me, I can admit that I fell in love with him based on your writings.
Yes.
I can realize that,
I read all that.
the things they were saying was really not true, and that he had done something really good.
Exactly.
Yes. So now let's enter into your living expertise. Now, a Champon ruled as if for about 6 years.
Most 7.
Yes. Okay, let's say 7 years. Do you think that the length of time for him contributed to his success?
See, you are coming back to the 5-4 years. You know, my position on the longevity is simple. If you are not lucky to get a good person, longevity becomes a liability.
Yes.
But if you are lucky to have a good leader, then longevity is not an issue. Yeah. In simple terms, that's how I see it.
Okay.
So that when I look at Lee Kuan Yew in Singapore, Mahathir in Malaysia, Park in Korea and all, I measure them by being good or bad for the country. You see, if you take...
By good or bad, you don't mean a moral stance, but visionary.
In terms of development of the country, offering progressive leadership that turns the fortunes of the country around.
Yeah.
I say. That's how I look at it. So it's a very tricky question. That's why I said, even in Ghana, even the 4 year that we have, if you are not lucky to get a good leader, you are locked up for 4 years and you can't do nothing about it until the year ends and you pray for the next elections to come.
And now you've extended to the 5 years. Now you have to wait one more extra.
The same thing.
Yeah.
So in the same vein, if you have a good leader, 5 years too short. So for me, what is important here first, as I said, is the quality of leadership. Quality of leadership. But to come back to my brother's point, his real defense of the 4-year as opposed to the 5 years. I think that this idea came first from the former President Kufuor.
Yeah.
His very last address to the nation, he made that point that being there, he thinks, in fact, he believes that the 4-year is simply not enough, and that 1-year addition could make a difference.
Okay.
So since then, this argument or debate has been
come
there.
to the 4
Exactly. Now, this new commission to review the constitution also revisited the issue, and in fact went back to consult so many people, including Kufuor himself. What makes it attractive to me is what I've already narrated. As for the cost thing, I threw in just my own calculation.
Yeah. Which convinced me to an extent. Anyway.
Sure. And it's a strong one.
Yeah.
Because if you calculate, and my biggest issue is the security implications of elections, how every 4 years this whole nation is at a boiling point.
We are on an edge.
We are on edge.
Yeah.
Then we spend so much money to maintain peace and stability. Then in the end you get your person, your party. What difference will have made if that party had been there for another year? What difference? Okay? But then I calculated that if you do it 4 times, that will be 16 years. If you do the same thing 5 times, that's 20 years. So if you made it 5 years, you've dropped out 1.
But even the election problem, we do not even count the political parties themselves, their internal elections.
Thank you. The primaries and the fights and the...
Because who is going for flag bearer?
Yes.
If the president is eligible to be re-elected,
right,
that also puts you on the hold. He's going for another campaign.
So we inflict so much anxiety, pain, unnecessary debates,
insults, backbiting,
thank you,
hitting at the
and
next
spending
person.
Money.
Yeah.
All these, even within the parties, spending money, and a poor person, somebody who wants to go for parliament, excellent candidate but no money. So if you calculate all of that, I'm saying the cost is so prohibitive. So why don't we save ourselves at least 1 election in 20 years? That's my argument. At least 1 election. You see, that's my argument on the cost. So then, of course, the other side is what my friend and President Kufuor had said, that it gives room for the leader, praying that is a good leader, it gives room for him or her to do. But after saying all these things, I think the issue of development, which is at the bottom line of what we're trying to achieve here, how the nation can derive maximum benefit from the leadership of anybody who comes in. The development question is a critical one. Because we don't go into elections simply to be somebody. You want to go into elections to change the fortunes of the country. And I think that a point just came to me from my brother's point, and you made it too, about going to elections and everybody going into it, the cost of what? The cost and ministerial appointments and all. It seems to me that there's one thing about us that we haven't really given attention to trying to find the answer to the question, why is everybody rushing into politics? The rush into politics has complicated our lives.
Maybe now, right after university, no employment, politics.
Employment.
Thank you.
Yeah.
No employment, you go in there, and that is why our young people are all gunning to be politicians.
Oh, yes. Now from campus, if the university campus.
Thank you.
Right there, he just gets a political godfather. Right after school, he enters.
It tells you what? It tells you that the country is not offering other opportunities for people to aspire to live their lives. And the truth about life is everybody is looking for the best possible way to earn a living. So that then brings the pressure back to the economy. How do we develop the country? Because if we have opportunities in the economic sector, most people will go into the economic sector where the money is good and is clean, rather than going to politics and corruption. Through corruption, you can build a house. You see, so I think these are issues too we need to pick up as a nation to really consider how we can boost the private sector. Our economic system should boost the private sector to absorb most of us, to become more of a productive country than to become a country that lives on what?
Politics.
Politics, which is not productive.
Yeah.
Nobody can convince me that going to be a politician will make you more productive.
In fact, that one should have even been sort of a 7 position.
Yeah.
That's right. Precisely.
When you look at the developed countries,
Yes.
Elsewhere, yeah.
look, if you insult the minister, he will give you back your job.
Your job.
Yeah.
He will resign immediately.
Yes.
But here, if
Because he has a better opportunity
minister,
somewhere.
a president, a parliamentarian, even if they are insulted, that is the time that he is also even going to sit on his position and probably
Nobody resigns.
Yes, nobody resigns.
Yeah, you see.
It's because
If he resigns, where is he going to?
Exactly. You
so
see.
we should have parliamentarians who who have their jobs. We should have a system where the parliamentarians should have their jobs doing, so that if you tend to insult him, he's just serving you.
No, it
If
makes
you
sense
look
because
at
in some
some of
other
these-
countries,
yes.
say the person who comes going to minister, he'd have probably worked at the UN, worked
or
at.
he's a lecturer.
Yes.
Such kind of people.
Farmer,
Yes,
businessman.
farmers.
So they come in with their experience
Yes.
to serve the people.
Yes.
But here it's like it's become a career.
Yes, it's
So
a
just
career.
go and learn on a job.
Yes.
It's not
And
even
let
it's
me-
a beginning career.
Yeah.
Beginning
Let me
career.
pick back on the issue of corruption
Yeah.
and relating to this our political systems. The point I really want to look at as far as the constitutional review is concerned is the entrenched clauses where a president can just leave office and will not be accountable, cannot be called to account for certain things he has done until about 5 years or so.
Or the indemnity.
Yes,
Or
the indemnity clauses. They need to be reviewed. The president, when you do something wrong, you could be called to order immediately. And that is what is causing a greater portion of the corruption. If the president cannot be held accountable, then he can do anything and leave.
But how
And
about
that is-
his
that is
appointees?
But that is just one point that I'm also against this portion of the review, where you have the president
Yeah.
being taxed and others. You know, the
You're saying
fact
that
that
president should be taxed.
the
Now,
president
the
must be
proposal.
taxed.
Yeah, but that
I
proposal was
agree,
made.
yes, he must be taxed. And if previously he wasn't being taxed, it means he was not feeling the kind of taxes that other people
Yeah.
are facing. So he must be taxed.
It means
But
when
the
he
point
checks
I
his
was trying
pay
to
slip
make
and he
earlier
sees the money going, he should
about
feel
the-
it.
Yes, he should see how much tax he is also paying from the income that he's earning,
Yeah.
so that he can also feel that even into all the benefits that he's been having. But the point I was raising concerning the president being not being held accountable,
Be immune from
until-
prosecution.
yeah,
3 years.
yeah, for about 5 years before you can bring such thing. Now, if I was against the review of bringing the handing over or something to bringing the elections to November and then prolonging the
Transition
the
period.
transition period. We all witnessed what happened during the previous transition period. That is where many contracts were signed, many appointments were made,
Yeah.
and now
Now the new government has to even rescind
the
some
new
of them.
government has to take charge of what that president who is outgoing, the moment he sees that he has lost power and he's not going to be held accountable for the things he's been doing because of the indemnity clauses, he can do anything. So instead of bringing the transition period forward, we should rather review the entrenched indemnity clauses to hold the president accountable for whatever you do, even immediately after you have left office. so that we can stop those corrupt practices. I know of a situation where certain contracts were signed during the transition period. So what are we, if you are to prolong it, then where are we going to head?
But we have many of them currently in court.
Yes.
The next government comes, they don't agree.
I think what we need to do is to bring some sanity in the transition period.
Okay.
I know a country, I think it's Bangladesh or Pakistan, I have to figure out. Towards election, they constitute an interim body that takes care of governance.
Yes.
Manage everything after the elections is transferred to the elected president.
That should
is
be
to
perfect.
ensure that gap that
Yes.
can give.
So it means that the government is no longer in the helm
yes,
of affairs.
yes,
The
yes,
transitional body
for
comes.
3 months or 2 months,
Yes.
you're out, and there's a body that is managing the country. Another point is, instead of waiting for the president to leave and use the cancelling the indemnity clause and all that, I think there should be clear-cut rules or laws
Yeah.
to criminalize
Yes.
any action taken after
The
or
election
within a certain period.
Yes.
So that once you know you have lost, you don't have any power
Yeah.
to sign. But the argument, though, somebody will raise is a government must be continued.
Yeah.
In other
Yeah.
words, there should be no gap.
Yeah.
So who will take care if you stop
Yeah.
the outgoing, outvoted government?
So, Prof, we don't increase the length anymore then, because even while we are mismanaging it.
The length is for the purpose of transition.
Yes.
So in coming to
But that
November,
one, that's
it
the
means they are
period-
giving 2 months, about 2 months.
Then that's the time we are going to sign everything and employ so many people.
No,
Look at
a
what
laws can
happened
stop
during the
that.
period.
Now there are no laws, so we can have laws
So
that stop
if
you.
you are reforming,
But the
certain
transition,
things,
I know
you need-
there's a Transitions Act which
It
governs,
is,
but I guess
exactly.
it doesn't have comprehensive provision on this
Exactly.
criminalization. and
Yes.
that.
Exactly.
It got to be
Even into the
criminalized, yeah.
constitution, we need to reform those portions. The indemnity clauses, bringing in the transitional period into the constitution and making
think
it
there is.
criminalized. Look
I
at
mean, the
the number
transitional
of people who were
provisions-
employed during the period. Now, if you say it's going to be November, then you can imagine the number of people who will be given employment,
Yeah.
and then some appointments that will be made, that will be hanged, that will be given to go and hang on the new.
Which is actually at a cost to the
Yes.
state, because
Yes.
usually when a contract is given
Yes.
and now the new government has to terminate it, there are breach clauses, which means the government must pay them
Exactly.
compensation, which
And
usually
they had to go to the extent of revoking certain appointments.
yes,
And
which
how
many of
does-
them are in court
Yes.
currently.
Look at the mess.
I
And
think-
one other thing, Prof, let me also talk about this corruption issue, is the reforms that we want to make dual citizens
To go for
to go and
elections,
hold
member of parliament positions.
certain positions in politics. Look, the practical experience that I have had in contact with appointment of dual citizens into certain helms of political appointments have been full of corruption.
The dual citizens?
Yes.
Well, I know, explain.
Is it?
Let me explain, Prof. These are our own Ghanaian people, our own people, who
Yeah.
hold
A different nationality.
different nationality. Anytime there is an issue, these people jump into the plane and they are back in another jurisdiction, which is difficult to track them, to come and hold them accountable. These are people who are supposed to honor their debts, their taxes, and other, citizen
Obligations
outside there. Where are they going to take the money from to go and honor those costs that are supposed to be there in that other country there? What is the extent that we give to the development of our own indigenous Ghanaians who have gone through the system and be trained to handle the affairs at the top?
But isn't this a marginal debate? I bring
No.
this in because when
No,
the
it's not.
Jachi issue came
I
up,
know where I want to land.
The
Okay.
land, because I'm interested in the
Please
I
land.
know where I want to land. So, like they rightly say in Akan, that Ohianema Obroni Sini Niema wo Abrochiri na Obehata no wo. Because if you are rich enough in outside there, you should have a washing machine. And then when you wash, you should have a dryer to dry it, and so forth. And you know the cost of electricity when you are supposed to do those things. So when you look at those costs, then you better wash there. You come to Africa where the sun is free, then you come and dry it up. The point I'm trying to raise is that there are certain top political positions and even directorates in public service and others that we should not encourage those positions to be dual citizenship holders.
Be practical. Mention some of these positions.
We've mentioned the MPs. We've mentioned directors and heads of institutions in the public sectors. And if you look at the salaries that have been tagged on some of these public institutions, the salary of the MD or the director alone can pay about 100 workers. And these are positions that are to be encumbered by most of these outside dual.
No, is that no?
Yes.
Is prescribed that only Ghanaian outside can occupy those positions? Is that the point?
That is the point that we need to look at, because the review that we are talking about, where those in authority who are not held accountable properly because of their dual citizenship, and when there are issues, they run away to the other.
But that's the answer I'm saying, that these arguments have been marginal.
We need to address properly. No,
these arguments have been, because I bring this up because it's come up severally. It's come up several times.
Yes.
If I let's draw it home. Let's use it very practical. Let me use Prof as an example.
Right.
Prof has lived abroad for a very long time. Let's say Prof took on a position. He decided to exercise his right to get a dual citizenship. Now he's been in the country for the longest time. I do not think that Prof left his Ghanaian identity. And for most of them are just on the paper. Now he comes back with his expertise that we think we must draw from it. We are only disqualifying because he just has a nationality to a different country, which to all intents and purposes, there's no evidence to show that Prof is going to shirk his responsibility or abandon his job just because he holds a second nationality. The argument they make that if there's a problem, they run away. There's actually been no evidence to show that. It's just, as I say, it's just a marginal argument that because you have a nationality, because in any case, if the person even holds no nationality in a different country, some other countries are willing to accept him anyway if there's a problem.
The point we are trying to make is that there should be regulations or laws that would be able to hold such office holders, whether they belong to other jurisdictions or within the Ghanaian.
Yes, that I think that we all can agree on that.
Don't single out those who have come from abroad. All Ghanaians, anybody who is placed in any position, there must be systems to ensure that they are accountable. So it's not the Ghanaian who comes from abroad.
No, but now, no. I'm not
even people who are not dual citizenship, they commit crime and run away. So I think it's a matter of what systems that we have in place to make sure everybody is accountable, irrespective of where you come from. I think that's for me
for
the
now
issue.
we don't have it.
That's true, because
then make the argument. Don't bring in the dual citizenship people.
We are jumping the gun to make it a constitutional requirement. But the constitutional reform also messes up in getting those accountability issues resolved if we really want to have those with dual citizenship to hold.
So what we can say is that then we should put more accountability checks on whoever holds the office.
The gum by making it a constitutional requirement that everybody can come in. But what are the regulations as part of the constitutional processes to be able to hold these people accountable
for everybody,
for anything?
Listen, what are the regulations for Ghanaians who have never lived outside? What are the regulations we have in place to make sure that when you are given an appointment, you do the right thing, and if you do the wrong thing, you are accountable? That is simple. In other words, what I agree is that we should develop systems to ensure that irrespective of your name, your gender, your origin, once you are placed in a position, there are enough systems, effective systems to ensure that you are accountable for what you are assigned to do.
And so that is
So
why
I don't know why you are walking around.
Even the issue of, I think
you got my point
South
right
Korea
now as it is.
Is it Mr.
So,
Cho?
yeah.
Just as I think Mr. Cho, I've gone in the recently.
Korean.
The Korean. I mean, he's Korean who has lived in Ghana literally his whole life.
Yeah.
Definitely, he still has ties to his country, but I mean, he has Ghanaian nationality and all that. Currently, there's no evidence he's not doing a good job. Even for him that we know he's a white man who has regularized into the Ghanaian system. There's no evidence he's not doing his job. So the reverse of a black man who is just going to live there again, maybe because of marriage or whatever it is, he got a nationality requirement. Maybe the real point is that we should just regulate everybody.
Exactly.
So that we don't have, even because, as Prof rightly mentioned, we have Ghanaians who, right after they are 10, they run away. They go and seek for all forms of shelters there, where they don't come back to standard to face the law.
I agree with you.
Yeah.
But currently, what do we have? You have to denounce your.
That's the system now.
That is the system.
That's the system now.
And that to me looks.
It's better.
Yes, that one looks better than where we want to loosen up.
I mean, I agree with you.
Yes.
Only just that this whole issue of dual citizenship is a huge philosophical debate.
Yeah.
Depending on where you stand. I mean, the argument on the fact that they'll run away, all those arguments are there. Yeah. I haven't seen any evidence. I know Professor Kweku Asare has been fighting this ever since. Recently, Supreme Court gave a decision that allowed that for some Supreme Court appointees, they can make some adjustments for them and all. But I guess, it's a huge philosophical debate but I think we can agree on the fact that no matter who you are, the accountability requirements must properly be put in place.
That is the point. Okay. And until that, we shouldn't revoke existing process where you are supposed to denounce your other jurisdiction and then be loyal to the country.
Yeah.
That is where I come from.
Yeah.
And I expect that we should be able to have people who are appointed to political positions and remain loyal into the country.
Absolutely.
And if we don't have those ones, we end up, opening up the system.
The tragedy is that we have a number of Ghanaians who would never travel outside, gotten jobs in the country, and have become the most disloyal citizens ever by stealing money and doing all kinds of criminal things. And they are Ghanaians, and you deal with them. We stay with them. So as I say, for me, it's not whether you're black, white, whatever. It's just that we need to have systems to ensure that there's full accountability for anyone who is placed in any position. That's the way I look
so
at
until
it.
we have those systems, yes.
Until we have
that, yes, we shouldn't losing what we have.
Right.
Because what we have at least have served as some element of checks onto the
sustainers for over 30 years.
Yes,
right.
Those who renounce.
But is there any evidence that somebody who did not renounce has committed something? Are you thinking of Ufuriata, for instance?
No.
We haven't even gotten there yet.
So who
but
do you have in mind? Is there any case?
No, he isn't.
What I'm trying to say is that one has served as a check.
Yeah.
Because once you renounce your other jurisdictions,
you come here fully.
You come here fully.
And
I'm
saying
the question you're asking is going to be hard to answer. It's going to be hard to answer because of our constitutional arrangement.
Yes.
You don't get the opportunity to even come and serve whilst you're still a dual citizen.
Yes. That's a different
The closest we had was Jachikwesi, but he had even renounced, but just that the documentation hadn't come. Yes.
So when you renounce and you know that you are a full Ghanaian, loyal to the Ghanaians.
Not a problem.
Yes, Prof, yes, I have a problem with that.
Who's a full Ghanaian? I don't know who's a full Ghanaian.
Someone whose nationality is stuck to the country.
Gen Zs will disagree with you anyway. Gen Zs will disagree. They'll tell you that he's fully Ghanaian.
They don't have the history. Most of them don't have the history of building up this country to this level. So we need to have people who have pledged their complete loyalty to their country. And when people come and they pledge their loyalty, we hold them accountable if something will be different. And we know our Ghanaian systems and cultures, where somebody knows that I'm a fully blooded, committed Ghanaian lawyer to the government or the appointee who is the government.
Let me ask you a question.
Then you have that loyalty.
This question will be very outrageous, but let me ask you.
Yes.
Jerry Rawlings had a white father, Scottish father, and a Ghanaian mother. So in essence, talking about pure blood, he wasn't in that respect.
Yeah,
but this is a guy who was born and became a president, head of state and all, and was patriotic in every sense of the word. How do you distinguish him or differentiate him from somebody who was born here,
just went there for a few years, got papers,
and squandered so much of the state's resources?
Did Rawlings ever say he was an Irish? He never said that.
But you don't have to say that for me to know you
Those
are.
argument is also on the reality.
No, he never said he was an Irish.
Yeah.
He committed himself as a fully
but on blood.
Ghanaian.
You use the term full-blooded. That's why I brought that in.
Appointments by blood.
The Scottish rules on citizenship, I don't know, but I guess so long as his father is Scottish, when he goes there, he may qualify as.
No, but did he go there?
He never did that. He never exercised that right. Appreciated. But I mean, what Prof's argument is that now he had that opportunity. I do not have an opportunity to be an American today. So even if I decide to today, the opportunity is not there.
It's your decision.
Yes,
it's your own decision.
Yes.
It's not by blood or by any other aid. But the point I really want to land on is the fact that it has worked for us. Absolutely. The constitutional provision that if you want to hold certain political positions, you should renounce your citizenship at the other side. Yeah. And that one has kept so many people out there because they
we are happy about that.
Why not? Why not? Because I'm happy about that because if we decide to give the person that opportunity and we are unable to control his activities, by the time you realize, but Prof is there. Which structures hold political appointees responsible?
Has there been any incidents in the Third Republic where somebody with a dual citizenship has committed something that releases you to believe strongly that, I mean, I want to have an evidence.
Prof, it is because it is not there. The provision restricts those people from coming in.
So you do not want to risk to open it up for us to get it.
Exactly, because like you rightly said, even Ghanaians, when they are given certain appointments, they can mess up and run away. So if the person is even a fully committed Ghanaian who has been given a political appointment and is able to mess up and run away, how will someone with a dual citizenship not be able to run away immediately? So the provision...
Right, so I get that your point is preventive. You don't even want us to open it and when you get to that evidence, but that is fairly appreciated.
That is the point I want
it's fairly appreciated.
Good point. But finally, I can tell you that there are Ghanaians who are dual citizens in this country who hold public offices. They are there. You see, Ghana is a crooked country. Yes. They are there.
They are there
and they are doing well.
Just the level. At certain levels, sensitive.
At certain levels, they are there.
Very well.
But not to more sensitive positions. So at least where they are, for what the Constitution has provided. Okay. To me,
we land on a different subject, but I think this is interesting.
Yeah, if I must say that my executive producer enjoying the conversation so much has given me a little extension of time. So I want us to just come to discuss the last leg, maybe briefly, on the proposal to reduce the presidential age from 40 to 35, whether it's going to make any difference. But I'll just take a very short break here. We'll take a breather, and when we come back, we'll just wrap up on that bit. So it's still the Focus on Zed 101.9 FM, your lifestyle, leisure, and business platform. We'll take a very short breather here. When we come back, my guests will continue. Do not go away.
101.9 Chim no Busono, Osimo Pias,